So recently I was inspired by a video by Hermione Chantal. She redid a corner of her bedroom for free without buying anything new, just using stuff that was lying around her home. So I decided to go ahead and try to challenge myself to do the same thing. So I've got a pretty decent amount of arts and crafts supplies lying around, and then I dug through my recycling bin. So without further ado, here is what I did. So I started off by going through my recycling and pulled out some sesame seed oil bottles, a salad dressing bottle, and some lotion containers. And the lotion containers I was able to just peel the labels off without any Goo Gone or soapy water, and then I just washed out the inside so that there wasn't any lotion left inside of them. For the bottles, I had to get a bowl of soapy water to first soak them in, and then after they had soaked for a little bit, I started scrubbing them with the sponge. But for whatever reason, the sesame seed oil bottles from Trader Joe's, I could not get the adhesive off, so I just gave up on those. But for my bottle and one of my lotion containers, I wanted to use this charcoal chalk paint that I had bought for another project when I redid my bedroom nightstand. So I just taped off about the bottom third of my glass bottle and began to paint it with just a cheap sponge brush that you can get at a craft store or at Home Depot. And I needed to do about 2 coats of this paint on the bottom of the bottle. I wanted to make sure it was completely opaque and not streaky. And thankfully there's a raised foot on the bottom of the bottle that my brush just naturally stopped at when I reached it, so I didn't have to tape off the bottom or anything, but I just brushed up till that foot, and then I painted the top of my lotion jar, let that dry, and then I painted around the sides. But it was easier to do the top first, let that dry, and then do the sides so that I could get a good hold on it while painting it and it wouldn't get too messy. And I think the bottle turned out pretty well. It's nice and minimal. I just styled it with some dried flowers, put it on my windowsill. I think it turned out pretty nice. And then the jar, I didn't like the purple with the brown. I thought the charcoal worked better with my decor, but it was pretty simple to just paint the top. And now it can sit on my bedside table and just hold little knickknacks. So for this next project, I took one of my smaller face cream jars and I had accidentally dropped it on the floor and cracked the plastic lid. So I thought I would just decorate the lip of it with some embroidery floss and tack it down with hot glue, but I really wasn't happy with the way it turned out. It looked really messy and just not very clean. It wasn't something pretty that I wanted on my shelf. I also then thought I could salvage it by taking some Rub and Buff, which is just like a metallic wax finish, and putting it along the lip of the jar. This is me struggling with the Rub and Buff, which eventually almost exploded in my fingers while I was doing that. And here I am with just all this excess Rub and Buff, trying to rub it around the lip of the jar to give it a metallic finish. But I don't think it was very successful. It just ended up looking really sort of messy and not something that I want to display in my home. So, as you can tell, not all DIYs turn out perfectly, and sometimes you just have to cut your losses and move on to the next thing. And then finally, I took this orange container that was full of body butter, and I took some copper enamel that I had gotten in the as-is section at Michael's. It was on sale for $1, and I hadn't really used it before, but I just took a cheap flat brush that I had and started applying it to the lid. First I thought I wanted a less opaque application, something that sort of showed the brush strokes. Then I changed my mind and started filling them in a little bit more fully. I was just sort of playing around, making these sort of large, abstract blobs that weren't perfect circles all across the top of the jar. And then I went back in and filled it in with some smaller dots. In retrospect, I wish I had gone for a different pattern, or maybe just done a bunch of the smaller dots across the top. I'm not super keen on how it turned out, but I like the idea, and I definitely could see myself doing this again, to upcycle these body butter containers, but maybe with a pattern that I'm more fond of, or even just doing a solid layer of the copper enamel over the top. But I think it's fun. I think the copper complements the orange bottom of the container. It adds a fun metallic element and a pattern to break up all of the just sort of solid blocks of color. And it's something nice that I can use to just hide small knickknacks that I own. And I just set it on my side table in my living room, trying to cover up a watermark that had tarnished my brass side table. It doesn't really effectively cover it up, but I think it looks sweet there, along with my, colorful bookcase. It sort of fits in and is a nice way to hide old knickknacks. So I hope you enjoyed that. There were definitely a couple of duds and some stumbling blocks. Learned a couple of things along the way. Nothing really groundbreaking, but I thought it was fun. I enjoyed trying to figure out what to do with some of these items that were lying around my house and use only supplies that I already had. So if you decide to take on a similar challenge, let me know. Please share some photos of some of the projects you've done. My Instagram is Natalie Collected. I'll link it in the description below, but send me some photos with the hashtag Natalie Collected. I want to see what you do.